Thank you so much. So my name is Lucia Ayala. I come from Nairobi, Kenya. That's where I live and work. I'm 33 years old. I'm told that is very young, but the Gen Zs will tell you otherwise. I am an active citizen and very pro Pan African, and I am really happy to be in this space. I'm very passionate about socioeconomic rights and basically just human rights. So I speak out a lot about them, and my activism majorly is on digital spaces. I would say Twitter is my most active platform. But I am also trying to now navigate TikTok because of the target audience, which is the Gen Z, being very active on this platform. I started this activism almost as an accident. I was frustrated about a security situation for university students back in 2019. So I took my phone and I recorded something and I put it out on social media and it went viral. So I kind of figured out it's something that I could do. And then the rest is, as they say, is history. I'm here now. So currently in my country, since I would say since last year, June, when the protests happened, the political atmosphere, especially where the citizenry is concerned, has changed significantly. The way we even interact with our leaders has really changed, and for the better. It has improved because now a lot of Kenyans are bold enough to demand accountability from the leaders that they have elected and those ones that have been appointed by the ones that we have elected. And as you can imagine, when this poster came out, and especially because my generation and the younger generations kind of feel like excluded from most of the conversations, the outrage that I saw on Twitter was uh, almost encouraging. It kind of tells you that the future has people to defend it, because then this just represented the fact that we never actually gained independence. We almost just changed the slave masters into people who look like us but are not for us. And there's a lot that we are now coming to realize is not of our own doing as Kenyans and as Africans at large. And one of them is the debt issue. And currently the issue of odious debt in my country is a really, really big talking point. And it cuts across all generations. It's not just the older generation or the younger generation. We are all aware of how debt is being used as a neo-colonial tool on us, especially debt that is not benefiting the masses as it is purported to by the Bretton Woods Institutes, and that will be the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, those institutions. The other thing that we are also seeing as a measure of neocolonialism in our country is the attack on our food systems. There are currently a few indigenous seeds that we are no longer allowed to possess as ordinary citizenship, or sell or exchange amongst ourselves in favor of the GMOs that are now currently here. I don't know if any of us had heard about Bill Gates and his foundation just being given the power to freely do as he wished with our food systems. It was, and we were very outraged about it. And these are things that have come with the Ruto administration. And I am very glad now that the entire continent is seeing him for who he is, because when he immediately got into power, he went around with this Pan-African messaging and he sounded really good, when in reality, it's not what is actually happening. We are finding out that he's a very clueless president. He's only in there for himself. There's nothing he's doing that is pro people. He currently has increased the budget to renovate his office, which was also renovated last year. and to do further renovations to State House, while our public hospitals don't have critical vaccines for newborns. The entire health system is crumbling. Our education system is not working. Kids are going to school, they're not learning because apparently there's no books. Exams are just being done anyhow. We don't have enough teachers. The ones that are there are not adequately trained. It's a whole mess. There is no public service in my country that is currently functioning to serve the people. But apparently, he has enough money for renovations, he has enough money to donate to churches. And this is not an attack on religion, but we also need to talk about how the white man's religion is being used to control us. And this brings me to the current poster that we are talking about, because it is one of the things that is going to be used as an important family value. And I am putting that in quotes, just so that they can keep us in line and control our population and be able to control what we can do or say. Because once Africa gets out of their control, they're going to be starved of the resources that they're so freely getting from us. The exploitation of our land has not stopped ever since the white man came here. They have taken so much from us, and we have given and given. And at this point, we need to realize, in as much as we still have these resources, we can't afford to just give them out like that. It's about time we stood up for ourselves, because these people are not going to stop taking. And if they can take more, they are going to take more. And the fact that we have people in leadership who do not think that this is going to be bad for generations to come should be very, very concerning to all of us. It is very concerning to me, and I am going to be a first time mother in a few months. And I am worried about the kind of Kenya and Africa my child is going to get. And I look at the people of Burkina Faso and Ibrahim Traore, and my heart is very proud of the work that he's doing, following in the footsteps of Thomas Sankara. But we all know that the white man doesn't want us to have that kind of autonomy, and they're going to try to continue taking him out. And we need to be concerned about that. I recently saw a video on this platform that said the difference between Africans and white people is we Africans are willing to die for what we believe in and for whom we believe in. But the white people are willing to kill for what they believe in and for whom they believe in. And that makes the difference. And it is about time we started living and killing rather than dying for our land. I'll be taking any questions now. I know there's a religious institution or conglomerate that's kind of pushing for it to happen, but I am not quite sure about the organizers. Although, looking at the panel, I don't think it will be hard to imagine the kind of people that are organizing this conference, because the fact that they are talking about Africans and Pan Africanism and family values with the exclusion of African themselves should tell us that they have an agenda that they are trying to push on us that doesn't come from us. And it should also kind of show us the kind of disdain that they have towards us, to not consider us equal or important enough to be seated on this panel to talk about ourselves. Yeah. Um, Angry, very, very angry. And when I say this, I don't just speak for myself. It's almost the same way when they give the travel advisories. You know, like there'll be some small incident happening in Nairobi, and all of a sudden they'll all issue travel advisories against their people and say, oh, don't go to Nairobi, Kenya. It's a threat for you. But when the same happens in their country, it's minimized. It kind of makes me very angry that we are not viewed as equal human beings in their eyes.
Yes, not so much of a question, host, but following up. Following up, I never cease to do the research. The panel that you see prepared here to speak to Kenyans about family values is have embedded in it specialists who was doing follow up on the microchip program, on the seed propagation program as it relates to GMO, and also on the human resources of Kenya. Now, when you look at the post I sent you yesterday, with the countries identified by the Russian intelligence about biolabs in Africa, you would realize in the beginning of the Ukraine war, there was a disclosure of the amount of biolabs in Ukraine, but nobody was infinite on the purpose or what specific angle they were targeting. A lot of them were dealing specifically with creating products genetically compatible to individual groups. I'm saying it to say that a topic like family values could never be as important as to have a panel like this get into Kenya to make it like an international program, like it would benefit Kenyans. Without apology, my brother, we are in some deep shit in Africa, in the world, and not realizing that the people have an agenda that they will not relinquish. It just happened though that this is a time where they are facing their greatest opposition to their existence. We could refer to Ursula von der Leyen and her statements and what she intends to do in the upcoming AU EU conference. They have already set their agenda. This is just another part of their efforts to maintain supremacy and dominance over the continent of Africa and the global economy. I could leave the rest for a little later. And special greetings to Sister Yawa. She's on mute.
Not at the moment, Sam. I'll come back to her. Yeah. Oh.
I wanted to say that, I come from the US, but I was born in Africa. I'm an American, but I see this list. The thing is the Pan African. Okay, why are they using Pan African word? Because now they're going to trademark it as their own. That's how it works. No one will be allowed to use the word Pan African. That's how white people are. I live in the US, I own a company. We trademark things. So it will be exclusively to them. That's how they start. And you know that they can't come to America to say to Africa to say we are teaching family values. I'm a nurse here. These people put their family in nursing homes. They don't want to pay for health care. They don't. When we black women go deliver babies, we barely make it out. Our children make it out of there. You've seen the statistics. They don't have your interest at heart. You need to boycott these people.
Uh, we the question for the
I'm gonna
sister.
talk.
Mhm.
Um, from the time of colonialism, I think we understand that our narratives have been hijacked and we have been given a single story narrative as an entire continent that has various languages and so many cultures and subcultures. We are all reduced to this just one thing, that we are so underprivileged, we are so desperate, we are so desolate, we cannot think for ourselves. And when they take the word Pan Africanism, I think it's to continue telling our stories for us so that we never have to talk about our own experiences. And I think for most of you who are in diaspora, you've had an experience where maybe someone came to your country or had something about your country that's very modern and they were actually shocked that you have such things. I think it was Chimamanda, she was interviewed at some point and the interviewer didn't know that there were libraries in Nigeria. And you know, most of us don't even know that the oldest university was found in Africa, because that narrative has been hijacked so that we don't ever see ourselves as anything of value or any value addition that we are adding to the global, you know, narrative as well. It's part of psyops. It's psychological control, because as for as long as they can tell us what our story is, it's difficult for us to even realize what our story is. But the one thing that I want to say is, we as Kenya are being used. You know, there's this quote that also says, when the white man is unable to come for you directly, they will look for someone who kind of looks like you, so that they can indoctrinate you into whatever they are trying to do. And I think Kenya is becoming that for the continent, and we need to be called out for that. We as the citizenry need to call out our leadership for allowing these things that don't align with Pan-Africanism to say. But to answer your question, it's to control our narratives, it's to hijack our narratives, and it's to basically be able to tell us, you know, this is what you need to look at it as and not your experience, to just gaslight us and invalidate that we also have a voice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So money is part of the incentive, I would say, or maybe actually the only incentive. There's a joke that goes around, you can get anything done in Kenya as long as you have enough money for it. Like there's always a price to pay. So these people must have paid the right price. And we think about it as a people. Maybe we don't say it out loud enough as we should, but we definitely think about it, because there's no way you are telling me an American is coming to teach us about family values. Like what family values do they have? They should be coming to learn from us. But you see, part of controlling the narrative is to tell us whatever you think is your family values is not what we want to tell you about family values, even though we are not practicing it is what you people should now consider as family values. It's the same thing they do with our hair. I think that would be a simpler example, because our hair has been demonized. It's been called dirty, untidy, unprofessional. It's all these things. And there's nothing wrong with our hair. I mean, we all don't have to have the same type of hair. Our hair is beautiful. The way we wear our hair is beautiful, and such things. Another thing would be the use of mud and earth to build, which now the white person is calling the future of building. But it's something that Africans have been doing for centuries. However, that is not being recognized, because when we do it, it's primitive. But when they do it, it's advanced technology.
Wow.
I have a question and I have to say something. The question is what the Kenyan people are doing uh, in, in the way of cutting Ruto off, because he's the one who creating all of this, and he's the one who is bringing this kind of people in our home. What the Kenyan people planning for him, Ruto, really? Because right now he's a danger in Africa, and I just so asking what you guys are planning for him, because you have to protest this guy. Period.
Okay, I hear you, and it's good to know that the rest of the continent recognizes that this man is a problem, not only for Kenya, but for the continent at large. Um, I would say nowadays, there's a lot of accountability demand that is going on, and one of the things that Kenyans have been doing effectively is emailing directly or directly communicating with international bodies or any organization that our president claims to have been in touch with. There was a time last year when he claimed he had paid some money somewhere so that Kenya could host the Grammys. And I think anyone can see how far fetched that was. But Kenyans really took it upon themselves to send emails to the academy just to make an inquiry. And we we can be such a nuisance online, honestly, which is working for us, because eventually we get a response that then just destroys the lie completely. So that is one of the things that we are doing. But as a long term measure, we are planning to get him out of power. And it's not just him, it's him and all the grandchildren of Moi and Kanu, the original political party, because we haven't changed much in our country. We have made some very good milestones, like getting a new constitution promulgated, but then the players in the political circles have not changed, and some of them have been here since we gained independence, like Raila Odinga, and it's just a continuation. So the young people are organizing around alternative leadership, because we are also tired of recycling the same old politicians. There's nothing new they're bringing. They're more comfortable with maintaining the status quo because they benefit from it at the expense of the rest of us. And the good thing about the current generation that we have of young people in Kenya is they're very well informed, very well educated, because we are the generation that our former president Mwai Kibaki educated for free. And we are not afraid to ask questions, and we are really at a point where we want our country to work for us. In as much as leaving our country seems like an option, we are no longer attracted with that option. We want to make our country work for us. So this is going to take a long time because political education is not easy and there's a lot of crackdowns going on when very vocal, bold people are gathering in a space to educate each other. We saw filmmakers being arrested because of the documentary that BBC released the other week. So we are a bit cautious about that. There's a lot of infiltration that's happening in our organizing spaces, but at the community level, we are still organizing, we are meeting, we are passing information, and we are educating each other, just so that we are able to pass this information to even our parents, which is currently happening, and it's a good thing. When content is put out on TikTok, the younger generation is now using it as conversation points at home, during dinner, during family gatherings, and we are finding it to be a very effective way of conducting political education around the country so that we are able to elect better leaders when we go to the ballot next time. Uh-huh. Yeah. Currently, I haven't heard of anything that has been done to stop the conference, but I believe that if pushed, then there will be. I don't think it has gained that much traction to get to the ground, other than the noise that has been on Twitter. Okay, now X. I haven't seen any push offline for it.
Yes. I was wondering. I'm not sure if you can even answer, but I noticed that France is still extracting half of the network of Kenya, and I was wondering why is that?
So I am not quite sure about that, but I know there were some deals that were made for some construction to take place that didn't happen, and then France is now getting compensated for breach of contract, and the contract has now been given to the Chinese people. So it's a lot of mess like that. However, I would say Kenya is a very successful outpost for the colonialists. We we our administration seems to be very friendly to the colonial masters for whatever reasons, and I believe that there are shady deals in which individuals benefit from. That's why this keeps going on. But I wouldn't have the exact details. Maybe if we have another platform, I can do
Mhm.
some research and come back with something more concrete.
And one more thing, one more question. Um, I understand also that they have six families only benefiting from the Kenya. Um, uh, okay, I have a question about that as well. Um, those people are there to say pro life or and not same sex marriages or whatever. Um, why is it that they're even there for that purpose? Because Kenya don't have that problem, but their narrative, don't they have a lot of Catholic churches there? I don't know. I'm asking.
Um, yeah, so we do have a lot of Catholic churches, but the Pentecostal churches are have a larger percentage of the Christian pie, I would say. And most of the Pentecostal churches are more likely to advance this narrative. And also, our president is very pro Pentecostal because the Catholic Church calls him out, so he doesn't like them that much. But it's easier to get this done through the Pentecostal faith churches. There's so many, and they're literally everywhere. In the estate where I live, I think there's three around me, just within like a 2 kilometer radius, there's three. If we are looking at maybe a 5 kilometer radius to a 10 kilometer radius, out of every three buildings, one is going to be a church. So it's a very strong network for them to get to the masses very, very fast. And I believe they are really taking advantage of it, because also we've put ourselves in our position where we are emerging as a trend setter in the continent, and we are easy to buy into compared to, let's say, South Africa. So I believe that's why they are here in the first place with this conference, to try and tell us what family values are all
Right.
about,
That's why I
and that
asked.
rich network makes it easy for them.
That's why I asked, because they're sharing how not to have same sex. I looked it up. If I'm wrong, please correct me. They're
Yeah,
sharing how not.
our president is also fighting that. You will notice our president currently does not enjoy a very good relationship with the current US president, and because Ruto thinks for Ruto, and he's looking at his interests and the best way to achieve them. And one of the best way to achieve his interests is getting money from the US. So he's going to do everything and anything to get into BTJ's good books, so that the money can flow the way it was flowing
I
during
figured
Biden's
that.
administration.
Wow.
Oh, I've been on a telephone call. It's like a switchboard. I've been on, and I've also learned quite a lot. Basically, this conference, there are also groups of people that are really working against it, which is encouraging. And there is one person that suggested, I don't want to say anything until he comes inside himself and reveals himself, has said, made a suggestion which I thought was very good, and that was to do a counter conference. The problem is, he was saying, we don't have much time because this conference is starting tomorrow. And a counter conference would have been very good. Um, so I've spoken to lawyers, I've spoken to journalists, I've spoken to people in the governance sector, and I've spoken also to Lucid. I've spoken to women's groups, a person leading a women's organization. I don't know how they call themselves. So the thing is, I've dropped information. Some are very much aware and were actually already in the process of doing things. And then others are, what do you mean? Why? You know, like, how dare them and stuff like that. You get. So, and the thing is, people are also very surprised that the diasporas are actually out there supporting them. Most people were never aware that, for example, that we as a group here and many other groups are actively involved in the developments in the continent, in terms of, seeing to it that such conferences should not go unflagged, if you know what I mean. I'm just saying, like right now, a lot of anything and everything, because number one, I'm still in shock, because, and there my mom is already calling me, and number two, I'm not very sure. I'm lacking what to do, and that is frustrating me. Let me take my mom's call, then I come back.
Yeah, you can't handle the truth. No, I don't have a question at this time, but I'm still here. I'm listening.
Yes. Yes, I believe so. And I believe so because something similar has been done. So, one of the things that we were also protesting about throughout the second half of last year was the fact that our politicians feel so comfortable to walk around with very large amounts of money to give to churches in Harambes. They'll go somewhere one Sunday and they'll be gathered there like 15 of them, and everyone will be donating 1 million Kenyan shillings, or just to put it in a global perspective, 10,000 US dollars. And you see, when there's 15 of you giving that amount, at the end of the day, it's a significant amount. Whereas we have very huge gaps of deficit in our budget. So one of the things that we set out to do was to make sure that no politician is given an opportunity to speak at any pulpit on Sundays. And initially they thought it was a joke, so they organized to go to some church, not a very rural area, but somewhere far enough from the city center. And people actually mobilized. It's almost, I think, a 1.5 hour drive from Nairobi, and people made it their business to be there by 5 a.m. so that by the time the president's security was getting there, the masses were already there, and they had to cancel the whole thing. So if we find a way to just package this well, and all it takes would be maybe just one video on TikTok, and it's going to make its way into other platforms, and I'm sure people are going to be convicted. And this is just within Nairobi. The other thing that is actually working for us, and I don't think this is a good thing, but we are making the most out of where we are with what we have, is we don't have jobs. So we have a lot of energy and a lot of time to just walk around and disrupt anything that we feel shouldn't be taking place. So yeah, it's a very possible thing. Another option would be if they are having a hybrid session where it's like both online and offline, we can storm the online spaces. And we've done this with IMF once before on their Facebook Live, where we were trying to tell them to stop giving us loans. And this was during the previous administration when Uhuru Kenyatta was president. We wrote emails and we were tweeting and we had a whole hashtag, and we kind of begged them, just please don't give us any more loans. And then 3 days after we did all of that, they gave us a very huge loan, and they set up this Facebook's live to kind of explain why they give loans to developing countries. And trust you me, within 9 minutes, we'd shut it down. We were in the comment section. I think anyone who has experienced the rage of Kenyans online will understand what I'm talking about. We were in the comment section, and I think in about 5 minutes, they had almost 10,000 comments, and they couldn't keep it up, so they had to shut the whole thing down.
Are you talking about the X where he dared come to talk to people?
No. The previous one, when Uhuru was still president, and we
Ah,
were
yes.
trying to tell the IMF to not give us loans, and there was a hashtag like stop loaning, hashtag stop loaning Kenya, and the IMF were ignoring us. So then, like, we stormed their Facebook, and it was only after storming their Facebook Live that they then wrote an email and said, we understand the frustration of the Kenyan people. Unfortunately, we only deal with governments, so Kenyans will have to talk to their government, and then their government will make an agreement with us. But then at least they kind of gave us a way forward, because before that, we didn't know we had to talk to our government. So, and I believe that was in the build up of the agitation that came last year over the finance bill.
I have a question. I have a
Uh-huh.
question. Do you believe that this conference and the churches are connected to keep Kenyan oppressed? Because that's exactly what they do here in America.
Yes, I
The reason
do.
why I mentioned that, because you mentioned that Kenya don't have many jobs, but y'all have a lot of churches.
Yes, I do believe the church and religion at large is one of the oppression tools that exist in modern day to kind of suppress the masses. We are more likely, and especially we as Kenyans, a majority of us identify as a very Christian oriented population. So we tend to listen more to our religious leaders, even in times when we question the political leaders. If a religious leader comes and affirms that that politician is a good person, then a lot of Kenyans will tend to believe in that. So it's a very powerful and effective control tool. And it is one of the ways that our current president used to actually get a lot of votes. He really endeared himself to the church, and the church really listens to the church. So one I think is to control our narratives. As I had mentioned before. I think also the issue of family values is for population control, for purposes of them maintaining a grip on our resources. And things, the way Americans are so entitled and they think they're the greatest thing that ever happened after sliced bread. I think they think so highly of themselves that they believe they can impose anything on any population that they want to, but mostly for control of the masses and for population control. And once again, Kenya is an easy entry point because we seem to be open to anything and anyone. We were hosting the RSF the other day, and we are currently pandering to Israel despite what they're doing. So it's easier for them to come through us. And then they can maybe use us as a successful example and go like, oh yeah, you see that program we did in Kenya with Kenyans, it worked, so it can also work here.